Today on Sports Central, we'll be going over our Big 12 quarterback rankings for the 2020 season. And yep, as always, we're going to be going over all the quarterbacks in the Big 12, all 10 of them. We're also going to be going over a tier list in this video along with the rankings. And yeah, as always, once again, these rankings are based off of how much experience these quarterbacks have, as well as the yardage, the good stats that they put up, along with how much talent's around them. So yeah, with that being said, let's look at your number 10, and that's going to be Kansas's Miles Kendrick. He's going to be our first player in the D tier. And there should be lots of competition for him. I mean, we don't even know who's going to be the starting quarterback hardly at all for Kansas going into 2020 quite yet. Of course, you got Miles Kendrick, and you also have Thomas McVitie in there. He should make a good bid to get that starting position. And it's more likely to be Miles Kendrick right now. I mean, he's just got more experience, and he also is just more promising in general. But the thing is that really concerns me about Kansas going into 2020. I mean, this team does not have a lot of big talent around their quarterback. Of course, Carter Stanley, their starting quarterback last season, he actually was not that terrible of a quarterback. I'd actually consider him a top 7, top 6 quarterback in the Big 12 last season. But like honestly, he put up some pretty good stats. But Miles Kendrick, when you've got a new quarterback, and considering how well Kansas did with a decent quarterback last season and Carter Stanley, it does concern me quite a bit. I mean, Miles Kendrick being a very inexperienced quarterback right now, there's a ton of uncertainty around him. And in the time that we have seen him, it was only in 2018 when he had 100 yards, a touchdown, and a 57.9% completion rate. So, yeah, we do not know a whole lot about this guy at all. And so, once again, considering how well Kansas did with a pretty decent quarterback last season, it does kind of concern me for them to have a brand new quarterback and pretty much the same talent or even worse than last season. It does concern me quite a bit, but I'm sure Les Miles is going to get it done in Kansas. I'm sure Kansas is probably going to make it to a bowl game at some point. I mean, it's got to happen when you got Les Miles as your head coach. But yeah, I don't really see it happening next season, especially with a new quarterback like Miles Kendrick under center. Moving on to number 9, it's your other D-tier quarterback, Max Duggan, and this is a very polarizing quarterback. Many people, I mean, you either love him or you hate him, and for me, I mean, I don't hate him, but I just don't think he's a very good quarterback in general. I mean, I've seen some rankings where they've got Max Duggan at number 5, number 6. I've actually got him at number 9 here. He was a true freshman last season, and he's got a major accuracy issue. That's one of the main reasons why he's so far down. He really needs to fix up his interception ratio. I mean, he's got a 15-10 touchdown interception ratio. That's basically a 3-2. So basically, yeah, Max Duggan, he's really got to improve that if he's going to get anywhere as far as being a good quarterback in the Big 12 goes. But once again, he's still very young. I mean, he's got a ton of time to still be able to fix that. And I'm not saying he's not going to fix that, but just looking at his completion rate, it's not looking very good for TCU right now. I mean, when you got a quarterback that puts up a 53.4% completion rate, when you're basically the entire season starting quarterback, it really concerns me. I mean, that's a really low completion rate. So, yeah, for Max Duggan, once again, I'm not bagging on him too much. I think he's got a ton of potential. But as for being a quarterback that could be one of the best in the Big 12, I don't think that Max Duggan is the guy that TCU should go with. But honestly, I mean, he's got potential. He put up over 2,000 yards at least. But once again, his touchdown interception ratio was not very good. 15 touchdowns is what he had, along with 10 interceptions. Moving on to number 8, it's going to be your first C-tier quarterback, and that's going to be Garrett Doge from West Virginia. He played behind Austin Kendall for the majority of 2019, and Austin Kendall, I mean, he's a decent quarterback, not all that great, so that may show how good Garrett Doge is going to be next season. But yeah, he transferred in from Bowling Green after the 2018 season, and I do see some upside in him as well. He does have a bit of an interception problem, but it's not honestly that bad. It is better than Max Duggan's at least. But yeah, looking at his career stats, in 2018, he actually had a pretty good season statistically. He was pretty accurate. I mean, not extremely accurate, but he was decent. He has 2,600 yards with 20 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. And then in 2019, he had 818 yards along with 7 touchdowns and 3 interceptions with right around a 66% completion rate. So, yeah, Garrett Doge, I mean, he didn't have a lot of experience last season. He played some for West Virginia, but once again, he's mainly behind Austin Kendall. But in the time that he did play, I mean, he didn't really do all that bad. I mean, many people are bagging on this guy and thinking that he's going to be a terrible quarterback, but yeah, I mean, he's got a 66% completion rate after 2019 after putting up 7 touchdowns. So, yeah, that's that. And then in 2018, he wasn't all that bad. So I do see a lot of upside in Garrett Doge, but I just don't see enough to put him any higher than at number 8. I mean, in this Big 12, I mean, there are several quarterbacks that I think could be really good next season. I'm not saying Garrett Doge will be one of them, but I do expect him to have a pretty decent season. I mean, I don't think he's going to be terrible, but I mean, he does have to fix up his interception problem, though. I mean, when you got a guy who's got basically a 2-to-1 touchdown interception ratio, you do have to fix that. It's got to get better. I mean, just that. But yeah, once again for Jared Doge, I do see some upside in him. I do expect him to improve going into 2020. It's still pretty tough to say whether or not he'll be able to hit higher than 2,600 yards, but yeah, nonetheless, that about wraps up for him. Let's move on to number 7. It's going to be Alan Bowman from Texas Tech. And this was a tough one to rank. I mean, he is a very injury prone, so it's really tough to say. I mean, if he's completely healthy, he can be a great quarterback. Looking back at 2018, I mean, he even had some injury problems in that season, I believe. But in 2018, he had 2,600 yards with 17 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, along with a 69%, almost 70% completion rate. So yeah, he was a really good quarterback back in 2018, one of the best in the Big 12 for that matter. Last season, it wasn't as good, but he was very injured for a good chunk of the season. He had just over 1,000 yards with 6 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, along with a 66% completion rate. So yeah, he was not all that bad of a quarterback over the past couple of seasons, and I definitely could see him being a very big surprise quarterback in the Big 12 next season if he's able to stay healthy. If he can't stay healthy, which that has been a problem for him in the past, that could be a bit of a problem. But I mean, once again, Alan Bowman, he does have a lot of potential in my opinion. I mean, his stats were very good through 3 games. He only played 3 games last season and put up 1,000 yards. Very impressive in my opinion. I do understand that those were probably through the easier games of the season, but that's still really good. I mean, a 65% completion, even that's really good. So yeah, for Alan Bowman, I do see upside, but his main problem, he's got to stay healthy if this team is going to do well. Moving on to number 6, it's going to be Kansas State's Skylar Thompson, and he's going to be a senior next season. That will be likely his last year with Kansas State. And he does have a bit of a problem with accuracy. That's his main problem, but he does put up a decent amount of yardage, so that's definitely that's a big positive for him. He's got upside as well. I mean, he's improved a ton over the last 3 seasons with this team. And I mean, if you look back at 2019, he did put up 2,300 yards along with 12 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. So yeah, he was a pretty decent quarterback. He put up nearly a 60% completion rate. And yeah, that's a huge improvement over 2018 at least. He nearly doubled his yards. He had 1,400 yards in 2018 along with 9 touchdowns and 4 interceptions, as well as a 59% completion rate. So yeah, for Skylar Thompson, he did improve a ton going into 2019. I do expect that to continue going into 2020. His main problem though is that he's losing a lot of talent around him. I mean, Kansas State was a team that they were actually more of an older team last season, and they're losing a ton going into 2020. So for Skylar Thompson, it's going to be tough for him to be able to improve, but I do expect him to. I think skill-wise, he's definitely improving. I mean, there's total signs of that. I mean, looking from 2018 to 2019, that is very evident. So, yeah, with that being said, let's move on to your number 5. It's going to be your first B-tier quarterback. That's going to be Spencer Rattler from Oklahoma. And he's got very little experience, and he's got a lot of talent around him too. That's the main reason why I've got Oklahoma's Spencer Rattler at number 5, is because of the talent around him. I mean, he's a 5-star quarterback in high school, and typically with most 5-star quarterbacks, 5-star any player, they do very well. And I mean, that's pretty obvious, but yeah, honestly, this guy, all he can do really for me is surprise me. I mean, he can either be a major surprise or a major bust. It's really tough to say right now. But I mean, in the time that he did play last season, he was 7 for 11, 81 yards and a touchdown, and he had a 63.6% completion rate. So yeah, he actually played pretty decent in the time that he did play last season, which was very limited. Once again, he only was able to pass for 81 yards, which is basically just a drive's worth right there. But yeah, once again, I think he's got a ton of potential. I mean, when you got a 5-star quarterback coming into Oklahoma, I mean, we've seen how well Oklahoma has done with quarterbacks over the past few seasons, and that leads me to believe, I mean, for Spencer Rattler, I mean, I think with him being behind Jalen Hurts last season, that could help him a ton, just being able to learn off of him. And I mean, I think that's going to help him a ton, especially being a 5-star quarterback. Once again, I think he's definitely a guy that could surprise a ton of people going into 2020. I mean, it's really tough to say once again. That's why he's so far down, is because I don't really know much about him yet. So, I mean, it's kind of tough to put him much higher than that, number 5. But once again, considering he's a 5-star quarterback and a great offense and a great team in general, I think he's going to do great at Oklahoma, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how he does. Moving on to number 4, we got Oklahoma State's Spencer Sanders, and he was really tough between Oklahoma State and Oklahoma's quarterbacks, but yeah, I have to put this guy at number 4. I mean, he's got more experience in general, but he's got a ton of upside too. He was a true freshman last season, and looking at, I mean, considering he was just a true freshman, those stats are honestly not that bad just for a first-year guy. But yeah, he's got plenty of talent around him too. I I mean, he's got plenty of talent, no doubt. I mean, he's got Tylan Wallace, and he also has Chuba Hubbard coming back, which I do expect Hubbard to quite possibly be the best running back in the Big 12 next season. I mean, he's definitely got potential for that, and that's going to be a huge help for Spencer Sanders in general. And yeah, honestly, with all the talent around him and considering how well he even did last season, he's got potential to be an A-tier quarterback going into 2020, I think. And he's got, once again, a ton of upside with him being as young as he did. I mean, he put up 2,000 yards with 16 touchdowns and 11 interceptions, and that's not a very good touchdown interception ratio, but certainly, I mean, for a first-year guy, it's still pretty impressive. I mean, his completion rate was decent. He had right around a 63% completion rate, so that's certainly something to watch out for as well. I definitely think this is a quarterback to watch out for in the Big 12, kind of similar to Oklahoma, so yeah, I got to watch out for that. But yeah, with that, moving on to your number 3, it's going to be your top B-tier quarterback, and this was a tough one to rank here. It was Charlie Brewer from Baylor going in at number 3, and yeah, not many people are actually liking Charlie Brewer going into 2020. I've looked over several sites, and many people are actually expecting a decline out of Charlie Brewer going into 2020, and yeah, it actually really surprises me. And I mean, looking at how many yards and how great of stats he's put up over the past couple of seasons, I mean, his accuracy isn't all that great, but I mean, still 65% from last season. Very, very impressive stats that he's putting up, and many people aren't really giving him the respect that I think he deserves. I mean, he's got an upside to be a big breakout quarterback in the nation next season, in my opinion. I mean, he was one of the best quarterbacks in general last season throughout the entire nation, and he does have good talent around him returning. He doesn't have all of it, though. I do think that Baylor may decline a bit in general going into 2020 just because of how much talent they're losing, but he still has plenty to work with. And honestly, I mean, he's got upside to get a 3,500 yard plus season, in my opinion. I mean, he could even hit 4,000, who knows. But yeah, looking at his stats, I mean, his stats are excellent. He put up 3,000 yards in each of his past couple of seasons. He put over 3,100, nearly 3,200 yards last season up, along with 21 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. His completion rate was 64.5%. In 2018, he actually had a great season as well, over 3,000 yards, 19 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions, along with a 62% completion rate. So, yeah, there is clear improvement from 2018 to 2019, and I expect that to continue going into 2020. I think Charlie Brewer is definitely a quarterback that could have a great career in the NFL. If he stays healthy, I think he's definitely right up there in the Big 12 for one of the best quarterbacks in the conference, and I could expect him to. I mean, he could definitely be a big breakout quarterback to be a top 5, maybe top 10 quarterback in the nation if it works out that way for him. Moving on to number 2, we got your first A-tier quarterback. We got 2 A-tier quarterbacks in the Big 12. Your first one is going to be Brock Purdy from Iowa State, and yeah, this is a pretty easy ranking for me. I mean, looking at his stats, very, very impressive. I mean, he put up nearly 4,000 yards. He was just 20 yards off from making that 4,000 yard mark last season, and yeah, he also had 27 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. Very good touchdown interception ratio with a 3-1. And his completion rate's very good too, nearly a 67%. So, yeah, and this is a quarterback you really got to watch out for going into 2020. And I mean, he's a big reason why I think Iowa State has potential to go on to possibly win the Big 12 in general next season. I mean, not many people are talking about Iowa State and Brock Purdy, but I think people need to be. I mean, Brock Purdy's a quarterback that definitely could be the best quarterback in the Big 12 next season. I mean, looking at how we did in 2018 even, I mean, he didn't have a very good touchdown interception ratio in 2018, but last season he really broke out. Great season for Brock Purdy. I mean, we were even talking after 2018 how great of a quarterback he could be, and he exceeded everyone's expectations, and I expect him to do that once again in 2020. I think he could definitely hit that 4,000 yard mark. He's got lots of talent returning around him, so you got to watch out for that. And pretty much in every stat, he was the second best quarterback in the Big 12. I mean, Jalen Hurts held quite a few records, but yeah, I mean, as far as accuracy goes, he was the second most accurate quarterback, once again behind Jalen Hurts last season. And considering Jalen Hurts is now out of the Big 12, look at who's the next one in line. It's Brock Purdy. So yeah, definitely this is a quarterback to watch out for, in my opinion. I mean, you got Sam Ehlinger, Brock Purdy, and Charlie Brewer. I think those 3 quarterbacks are going to be the big 3 of the Big 12 going into 2020. And next up, moving on to number 1, if you haven't figured it out yet, it is Texas's Sam Ehlinger, and this is a pretty easy ranking for me. I mean, he's got tremendous upside. His yardage is absolutely amazing. And honestly, I mean, he's been an elite quarterback for the past couple of seasons, and this is a quarterback, I tell you what, if he was with LSU in 2019, he would have been almost just as good as Joe Burrow was, in my opinion. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of talent around him, just to put it, I mean, just honestly in general. I mean, this Texas team was a big disappointment in 2019, and that was because I mean, this team didn't have a whole lot of talent. Their defense was a disappointment. And yeah, for Sam Ehlinger, I mean, he really carried this team last season. I hate to put it that way, but it's very much true. I mean, looking at the stats that he put up with a team that really was not all that good last season, he put up nearly 3,700 yards, 32 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, along with a 65% completion rate. Very impressive stats by Sam Ehlinger, especially, I mean, in 2018 he even was really good, and that was when he had plenty of talent around him. That's when his defense played really well. He had 3,300 yards with 25 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, along with a 65% completion once again. So, yeah, considering Texas, I do expect their talent. I mean, they should be a much better team, I think, going into 2020. This is still a team that I consider to be a dark horse in the Big 12. I mean, not many people are talking about them because they're a bit of a disappointment in 2019, but I think that is not right. I think Texas definitely, and Sam Ehlinger, this team has got potential to make a run for the Big 12 title next season, especially with Jalen Hurts being out at Oklahoma. This is the perfect season for Texas, especially having Sam Ehlinger in here. Honestly, this is like the one time in, I think, a while that Texas could win the Big 12. It definitely is very possible this upcoming season. So yeah, with that being said, that about wraps up our Big 12 quarterback rankings for the 2020 season. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to slap a like on it, subscribe as well, really helps out the channel, and I'd really appreciate that. But once again, thank you all for watching. Be sure to stay tuned for more from All Sports Central, and I will see you all later.